tell us who you are?
I am the mother of George Akins Jr., murdered October 21st, 2017, and Quaniqua Chanel Lee Akins, murdered February 23rd of 2019, 16 months apart.
I was going back through our previous stories and saw George's story as well.
Yes, sir.
Your family's been through a lot.
Yes, sir.
What were you looking for out of your daughter's case? What conclusion did you want to see?
I wanted all three people responsible for my daughter's murder to be found guilty. They were indeed guilty. They were willing participants. They had been together the night prior where they shot up my mom's house, were still together when they shot and killed my daughter on that Saturday night.
I do want to ask, I was looking back through the deposition in Rhonda Lynn's case, and it listed an argument was the start of all of this. Do you know the details as far as what led?
Briefly, didn't know until Rhonda Lynn testified what the beef was actually about. Just know that it was for a prolonged period, primarily through messaging at that time with her and my daughter. And basically led to a physical altercation that Friday morning at a bar after my daughter got off from work. Yes.
And then the gunfire into your mother's home.
Yes.
Later that night.
Later that night.
Okay. So then from Friday night into Saturday, or Friday morning into Saturday, I saw where the three co-defendants ended up going to Florida. And
yes. After they shot up my mom's house, they fled to Florida. And it was in Florida or during the drive to Florida that they started receiving threatening messages from Aaron Wright. He testified in court and admitted that he sent them threatening messages. One message that basically pretty much aggravated them, and that was a picture of Rhonda Lynn's children saying you or them. That led them to come back to Savannah.
Well, and Saturday.
And then Saturday, well, they get back from Jacksonville. She stated that they, at that time, were going to get a room in Port Wentworth, Georgia, but with the news from Effingham County already hitting the news, of course, you know, they were scared to be found at that point. So she stated that they went to Carolina to get a room. And upon coming back in Savannah from Carolina was when they saw the car that occupied Aaron Wright and my daughter, Quaniqua, and that's when the shooting in Pooler took place.
So they just happened upon them?
Yes, and you know, the detective originally told me that when he was doing his investigation, but actually seeing the dash cam footage, it pretty much aligns up with what she had originally said, them just seeing the car. Because it's kind of like you could see them driving, there's like a stop, and then a slow, and then it drives off. But during the stop and the slow, you hear the gunshots from the officer's dash cam.
Well, and we've requested that. I know with the case concluded now, DeAndre's anyway, that we should have access to that to see. But so they knew exactly who they were looking at and who they were shooting at.
Yes, at that point. They also had a civilian to come forward who witnessed, basically he couldn't testify to seeing a hand or an individual, but he testified to what he saw so far as the vehicle and the stop, the movement of the vehicle, and basically the muzzle flash through the window of the vehicle. At that point, didn't think anything of it. Was still actually on Pooler Parkway as the high-speed chase started, and then he just went home. And upon getting home and watching the news and finding out that there was actually a shooting that took place and someone listed in critical condition, thought the need to come forth and offer whatever he could to see if it would be helpful, not knowing it would be.
Well, and we know that night Rhonda Lynn was caught.
Yes. So they led the police on a high-speed chase from testimonies reaching up to 146 miles per hour. She testified that After they got off on 204 coming down Abercorn, that she made that turn behind the Walmart. And it was at that point that Sierra and DeAndre Mims jumped out the vehicle. She had to abandon the vehicle because it had 2 flat tires. And so when officers pretty much approached her, and why they approached her was because the officer who pretty much initiated the chase put out a bolo, a be on the lookout for black female with red and blue jacket. And of course, she was still wearing the red and blue jacket that night. So that was the reason for them approaching her, and she still had the keys in her possession.
Wow.
Yes.
So they knew they had who they were looking for.
Yes, sir.
And she talked.
She did.
With police.
She spoke with police. She gave them names of the other occupants of the vehicle. So at that point, just knowing that information, I feel, and my family feels like that was an open shut case. You not only have a officer's dash cam at this point, but you also have one of the suspects' testimony as to who basically committed the crime with her. Moving forward, we were called in for multiple meetings to where the ADA, Bradley Thompson, wanted to offer Rondalyn a plea deal.
Did he explain why?
Basically, he was concerned about being able to put the gun in someone's hand, not realizing just, with putting them in the vehicle, having evidence that that was indeed the vehicle that participated in the crime, that he pretty much had all 3 of them. With the knowledge of the beef between Sierra Mims and Rondalyn Butler and my daughter, I felt at that time, and throughout the course of this investigation and the trial, that, they were the primary suspects. If any. I had never before heard of DeAndre having a beef with my daughter. I'm not saying that there wasn't, but at that point, just in conversation with my daughter, text messages back and forth, basically the beef was between my daughter and the 2 females. So to be cutting one of the females a deal was not okay with us. Like, why is she going to get away or get lesser time just because she says she's agreed to testify against the other 2? Like, we don't need her testimony at this time. Like, why are we what's your point of offering her a deal? And it was pretty much to put the gun in someone's hand.
Okay. Well, we know how that case ended up for Rondalyn, and the charges that they lowered everything down to.
Yes.
I think aggravated assault was the highest charge.
Yes.
And her sentencing was pending everyone else's cases.
Yes, her sentence was pending basically her cooperation in the case against Sierra Mims and DeAndre Mims. It was basically supposed to be her full cooperation. I do not feel that she fully cooperated. She offered information. She offered just enough information to basically indicate DeAndre, but to pretty much soften what was going on with Sierra. Even though she tried to steer away from directly pointing at Sierra or putting anything on Sierra, truth still remains, she said other things to pretty much basically solidify Sierra's role in what took place.
Okay, so she painted a picture, wasn't as complete as you would have liked.
No, it's like, if I have to give an example, that's like me saying that, hey, I seen you with this gun. I know this gun to be yours because I've seen you with it often, but not basically saying I seen you give it to your cousin to do the shooting. So it was like certain things, more that could have been said if she wanted to fully cooperate. She, in her testimony, you could tell she was trying to make it seem as if they were unaware of what DeAndre was going to do or was accused of doing. But it all boiled down to her really trying to cover up for Sierra and them both trying to put everything on DeAndre.
Well, so we're still waiting on her sentence.
Yes.
I believe there's a status hearing on the 22nd, I want to say.
And you know more than I do, again.
That's pending, of course. I'm sure there are things that can push it forward or move it back. But So you were in the courtroom notified that Sierra's case was coming up. Sierra and DeAndre's both was coming up when?
On Monday, on my way to work, I received a call from Robin Shelton. She's a victim witness advocate. And the primary reason for her call was to ask me for a picture for the ADA, Brian DeBlasis, to pretty much show in court. And she made the statement, she said, I'm sure you already know that there's a court date. And at that time I informed her that we did not know it was a court date. And what court date was she talking about, for who, and what child. And that's when we learned that there was a trial date already set for my daughter's trial. And that was on January 24th, and trial was to begin January 31st.
Well, obviously you wanted to be there for that. Well, listening
Yes.
in, I understand it's kind of mixed virtual and in person, right? So were you there at the courthouse?
Yes, I was. I was there. Jury selection had already started. I arrived at the courthouse about 11 o'clock, and that was because I was watching it live stream, and it came up that that's when they were actually offering Sierra Mims a plea deal for the 25 years. At that point, so of course that disturbed me. I reached out to Robin, who sent me to number for Kyle Glover, stating that he's the one that schedules appointments for the district attorney. I briefly stated my concern with him, gave him my contact information. He informed me at that time that the district attorney didn't get in till 10 o'clock. At this point, it was just before 9 or just after 9 o'clock. So I waited until like a quarter till 11. Hadn't heard anything back from him. So at that time I went down to the courthouse, went to the district attorney's office. I met with Kyle Glover, and I'm not sure of his name. He was a black guy. It was really nice, but a black guy that Kyle referred to as his next chain of command. So they both met with me along with Robin Shelton, took notes so far as my concern. They went in the back, they came out. He told me that the district attorney agreed to meet with me, that he didn't know exactly what time she would be back, but she has agreed to meet with me. Again, took my contact information and told me that I could either stay at the courthouse and wait for her in the victim witness room, or that they can give me a call when she returned. Well, I waited, and I waited from 11 o'clock till just before 4 o'clock, and she never showed. She sent Jenny Parker, who I think identified herself as the district attorney's chief executive officer. I expressed my concern with her. I expressed our disapproval of being notified with not much time to prepare. Me and my husband both work, so it didn't give us much time to prepare anything. She told me that, you know, she trusted Brian DeBlasis' decision, that she felt he knew what he was doing at that time. So it was basically like, I hear you, but this is still going to go forth. But again, Sierra denied or declined the plea deal. So we get through jury selection. We go through the court proceedings for the witness testimonies and evidence Monday through Thursday. On Thursday, it was kind of like, you never know the outcome, but I felt good about the outcome at that point.
Why is that? Just based on the testimony?
Just based on the testimony, and at that time, it's like, even if she didn't solidify anything, in the beginning, she had already named the other two occupants. So just the basis of all three being held accountable at that point, it was like, I felt good about it. During the course of the trial, it came out that, you know, the defense pointed out a lot of things that could have been done, should have been done, that wasn't done on the state's part as they continued their investigation. One being, you know, it was like 5 phones confiscated, one being my daughter's. I gave consent for my daughter's phone. With Rondalyn's phone, she gave them the passcode, but she had some like other type encryption set up. Well, she testified on the stand that if she had been asked to, you know, get in her phone, would she have done? And she stated yes, but no one ever asked her. The other 3 phones wasn't sent to be extracted until like late November, December of 2021. Why a continuance wasn't granted to wait for those extractions to come back, I have no idea. But they proceeded with the trial and it backfired. As the defense called it, they pretty much rushed into everything, basically. They were so focused on, hey, we got this, let's do this, and they overlooked a bunch of important details. At that point, it was no way to actually say that DeAndre was in the vehicle at that time. Just in my own interpretation, it really could only prove that he was there at some point. Right. And it left the defense to ask the jury so far as, are we just supposed to take Rondalyn's word for it? There's a law that states that if you're an accomplice, a guilty verdict cannot be returned on an accomplice testimony alone, basically leading the burden on the state to provide either another eyewitness statement or other corroborating evidence to basically corroborate what the accomplice is saying. And they dropped the ball in that in so many areas, from phone extraction, cell phone mappings. They tested for fingerprints and DNA, never tested the vehicle for gunpowder residue. So it's like so many things that could have been done that wasn't done. And the fact that they ignored the wishes of my family numerous times is just like unacceptable. Like, you can't promise to work for the people to get justice or their families and then not listen to them. But had they listened to us in the beginning by not even offering a plea deal, I feel like all three suspects would have been found guilty. We would have got the verdict that we so rightly deserve.
When you heard about the conclusion of DeAndre's trial, just yesterday, right?
The conclusion with DeAndre, I was in the courtroom for the verdict on Friday.
It was Friday. Okay.
Yes,
and
I was.
Yesterday. Okay, so
yes.
You were in there on Friday.
Yes.
If you can, just as a mother, walk us through what you were feeling at that point when you heard the jury's decision.
I know that the responsibility is not directly mine to get justice for my daughter. I did not fire the gun that killed my daughter. I did nothing. I played no part in that. But in hearing the jury come back with not guilty at some point, with how my daughter died, it was just like, I felt guilty, like I had failed her. Like, I'm her mother. You know, her whole life I spent trying to protect her from things like this, trying to raise her as God has called me to raise my child. And at the end, her life was taken in a horrible way. She did not deserve that. And I felt she deserved justice. And we did not get that for her. So I felt like I failed her. I felt like I failed my daughter. I felt like the system failed my daughter. I believe the system failed my daughter.
Do you see any recourse at this point? I know from the defense side, someone accused can appeal, but when you're the victim and the victim's family, what else is there at this point?
You're just pretty much left with that. And like I say, we trust these individuals to an extent to do what they promise. They promise to work hard and, you know, get justice for our children, our family members, our friends. And it's not just about me. It's about so many people, to where they want the accolades for arresting these individuals, but they do nothing to convict them. In my daughter's case, it's just like time and time again, like y'all ignored us. Like we didn't have a voice. Y'all ignored us. The DA herself would not make herself available to meet with us. How can you promise to work for your people and you're not even meeting your people to even get a glimpse or some kind of understanding as to what they're going through? So for her to avoid me not once but several times and not meet with me, I mean, that's unacceptable. And when justice lies basically is based on conviction rates and color and money, that's not justice at all. That's not justice at all. That's not what we put these people in office for. When you promise someone you're going to do something, they need to be held accountable to do that which they promised. The only difference from me and a lot of people is the fact that I know that true justice doesn't lie in their hands. True justice lies in the hand of God, the Father. And at some point, you know, whether that be them coming to saving faith and accepting Jesus Christ as their Savior, that's still justice. Or whether they never accept Him and they be condemned to a burning hell, that's justice as well. But that justice I trust. But the state, I can't trust them. I have no faith in them at all because they let us down, not just in my daughter's case, but in my son's case as well. How can it be for 2 murders, the murder of my son and the murder of my daughter, end up in 2 acquittals, a mistrial, and 2 plea offers? That's not justice. That's not justice. That's laziness.